This story is called, My Girlfriend Told Me I Was Easy to Replace and Said She Settled for Me, then later came back begging after reality hit her hard. Before we get into it, though, I need to ask you guys for a quick favor. The channel's been slowing down lately, and one of the biggest ways you can help out is by subscribing. It only takes a second, it's completely free, and it really helps support the channel so we can keep putting out more content like this. Seriously, your support means a lot to us. Let's keep growing this thing together. Thanks again, everybody. Alright, now let's get into the story. So, I've been holding this in for a long time, but honestly, I need to get it off my chest. My girlfriend, or I guess I should say my ex-girlfriend now. Let's call her Vanessa, and I had been together for about 2 years. She's 25, and I'm 27. When we first got together, I genuinely thought I had found the perfect woman. Vanessa was one of those girls who could walk into any room and instantly get attention without even trying. She was insanely attractive, super confident, and always carried herself like she knew everyone was looking at her. I'm not gonna lie, I felt lucky just being with her. I was proud to call her my girlfriend. About a year into the relationship, we decided to move in together. Well, technically, she moved into my place since I already owned the house. Vanessa was still finishing college while working part-time, so most of the financial responsibility landed on me. I paid for basically everything. The mortgage, utilities, groceries, even her car insurance. At the time, I honestly didn't mind doing it. I looked at it like I was investing in our future together. In my mind, I was helping her get through school so we could eventually build a stable life as a team. Back then, everything actually felt amazing. Vanessa was fun to be around. She was energetic, funny, sweet when she wanted to be, and she had this way of making every room feel more alive. Honestly, she made me feel like the luckiest guy on the planet. I was working crazy hours at my job, but it didn't bother me much because I loved coming home to her. At least, that's how it was in the beginning. The first 6 months of living together felt great. We'd spend weekends checking out new spots around town, binge-watching random shows together, and just enjoying each other's company. It felt comfortable and easy. But little by little, things started changing. At first, it was subtle enough that I almost ignored it. Small stuff. She stopped waiting for me before eating dinner. Conversations got shorter. Instead of talking to me, she'd sit there scrolling through her phone for hours. Then she started going out more often. She'd tell me she was meeting up with friends, and at first, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, everybody deserves their own social life, right? I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend. But after a while, it became constant. Weekends, random weeknights, even evenings when I thought we'd spend time together. I'd come home after work expecting to see her, only to walk into an empty house over and over again. And whenever she finally came back, she barely acknowledged me. Most nights, she was glued to her phone or went straight to bed without saying much. No hugs. No how was your day? Nothing. Eventually, I tried bringing it up. I told her it felt like we barely spent time together anymore, and her response was basically to shrug it off. She told me, I just need some space sometimes. You're overthinking everything. That honestly bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I was putting everything I had into this relationship, trying to make it work, and somehow I was the problem just because I wanted us to feel connected again. Something about that didn't sit right with me, but I also didn't want to come across as needy or controlling, so I dropped it. But instead of getting better, things got worse. I'd wake up on Saturday mornings and realize she was already gone before I even got out of bed. Hours later, I'd get some vague text saying she was out with her friends or busy doing stuff. After a while, I stopped asking questions because every time I did, she acted irritated, like I was interrogating her or invading her privacy. So I stayed quiet and convinced myself maybe it was just a phase. I kept hoping things would eventually go back to normal. Still, deep down, it was eating at me. I started feeling less like her boyfriend and more like some roommate she tolerated. I was covering all the bills, making sure she never had to stress financially, and trying my best to support her in every way possible. And she couldn't even make time for me. Honestly, it wasn't really about the money. I didn't care about paying for things. What hurt was the complete lack of effort from her side. There's one night I remember really clearly. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift and came home completely drained. The house was dark and empty. Vanessa wasn't there. I texted her asking where she was, and about an hour later she finally replied with, "Just out. Don't wait up." That was the whole message. No explanation. No apology. Nothing. I remember sitting there on the couch staring at my phone, feeling this heavy knot in my stomach. I started asking myself what the hell I was even doing anymore. I kept trying to make excuses for her. Maybe school was stressing her out. Maybe she just needed more freedom or independence. But deep down, I already knew something was wrong. It started feeling like I was the only person putting effort into the relationship, while she just coasted along and took everything for granted. And the worst part was that I genuinely loved her. Vanessa wasn't just some random girlfriend to me. I honestly saw a future with her. I thought we were building a life together. But as time passed, it became obvious I was the only one actually building anything. Meanwhile, she was just sitting back and enjoying the benefits. That's when I started questioning myself. Was I too nice? Was I making things worse by giving her everything without expecting much back? I hated thinking that way, but I couldn't stop. Every time I walked into an empty house or tried talking to a distracted girlfriend who barely looked up from her phone, it felt like another slap in the face. I was giving her everything I had, and in return, I was getting the absolute bare minimum. Eventually, I talked to a couple of my friends about it. Every single one of them told me I needed to start setting boundaries. One of my buddies even joked that I was basically acting like a sugar daddy without getting any of the benefits. I laughed at the joke at the time, but honestly, it hit harder than I wanted to admit because part of me knew he wasn't completely wrong. I didn't want to believe Vanessa was using me, but the signs were becoming harder and harder to ignore. At that point, I knew we needed to have a serious conversation. I wanted to know if we were still even on the same page anymore, or if I'd just been fooling myself this whole time. I kept telling myself I'd bring it up the next time we actually had a calm moment alone together, assuming that ever happened again. That night, I couldn't stop wondering whether Vanessa was really the person I thought she was, or if I'd just been blinded by how badly I wanted her to be that person. That question stayed stuck in my head for days. I kept trying to figure out how to talk to her without sounding accusatory. I didn't want her thinking I was insecure or trying to control her. I just wanted honesty. But before I could even bring it up myself, Vanessa ended up beating me to it, and not in a good way. One night, she actually stayed home for once. I remember thinking, finally, maybe we can just have a normal evening together again. We ordered takeout, sat on the couch, and started talking about random stuff like we used to. For the first time in a while, things actually felt comfortable again. Honestly, for a minute there, I thought maybe things were finally getting better. At some point, though, the conversation shifted toward relationships and loyalty. I don't even remember exactly how we got onto the topic, but I mentioned that it was important to me for both people in a relationship to feel like they were a team. Vanessa laughed a little after I said it, and gave me this look like I'd said something ridiculous. And then she dropped the sentence that completely changed how I saw her. She looked at me and said, "You know you're replaceable, right? There are tons of guys out there who'd gladly date me." I honestly thought I heard her wrong at first. I just stared at her for a second and said, "Wait, what?" But then she repeated it again, this time with this smug little smile on her face like she thought it was funny. "Relax, don't take it so seriously," she added right after that. "I'm joking." But honestly, it didn't sound like a joke at all. Not even a little bit. I just sat there staring at her, trying to figure out whether she understood how messed up that comment actually was. But she acted completely unbothered. She went right back to scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just crushed whatever confidence I still had left in our relationship. I didn't want to start yelling or turn it into some huge fight, so I stayed calm and asked her straight up, "Is that really how you see me?" She immediately rolled her eyes and let out this annoyed sigh. "Oh my God, you're being dramatic," she said. "Obviously not. But I mean, it's true. Guys flirt with me all the time. That's not my fault. You just can't handle it." I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only did she not take it back, but somehow she managed to make me feel like I was the problem for being hurt by it. And the craziest part? She never apologized once. She acted like the whole thing was completely normal and that I was overreacting for even caring. The rest of the night felt painfully awkward. Neither of us talked much after that. Eventually, Vanessa went to bed early, probably irritated that I wasn't laughing along with her little joke. Meanwhile, I stayed out on the couch replaying the conversation over and over in my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that she genuinely meant what she said. That to her, I was just another guy, someone temporary, easily replaceable, just one option out of many. The next morning, I tried acting normal. Part of me hoped she'd bring it up on her own, maybe apologize, or at least acknowledge how disrespectful it was. But she didn't. She acted completely fine, like nothing had happened at all. Before leaving to meet up with her friends, she casually kissed me on the cheek and walked out the door like the previous night never even happened. That's when it finally hit me. She truly didn't care. She didn't care about how badly her words affected me, and she definitely didn't care about how one-sided the relationship had become. To her, I was just convenient, reliable, easy, replaceable. After that conversation, I started noticing a lot more things I'd ignored before. Little comments she'd make about random guys staring at her when we were out somewhere. The way her friends constantly joked about her being the attractive one in the relationship. Before, I used to brush those comments off and laugh along with them. But after what she said that night, those same comments suddenly felt different. It started feeling like she was testing me to see how much disrespect I'd tolerate before finally snapping. The thing is, I've never been the jealous type of guy. I always believed trust was supposed to be the foundation of a relationship. If you trust each other, there shouldn't be constant suspicion or insecurity. But this situation wasn't really about trust anymore. It was about respect. And the truth was, Vanessa didn't respect me at all. Over the next few days, I slowly started pulling away emotionally. I stopped texting her during the day to check in. I stopped asking about school or whether she needed help with anything. Part of me just thought, why keep trying so hard for someone who clearly doesn't appreciate it? If I was so replaceable to her, then what was the point of exhausting myself trying to make her happy? Still, despite everything, I wasn't fully ready to end the relationship yet. I kept trying to convince myself maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she really had been joking and I was taking it too personally. I mean, throwing away a 2-year relationship over one bad comment sounded extreme, right? That's what I kept telling myself anyway. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about that one sentence. It was everything leading up to it. The emotional distance. The entitlement. The lack of effort from her. That comment was just the final layer on top of problems that had already been building for months. One night, I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my phone when Vanessa came home. She barely even looked at me before heading straight toward the bedroom. I stopped her and said, "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" She groaned immediately like I was asking her to do something unbearable. "What now?" she said. I paused for a second, trying to figure out how to say what I was feeling without turning it into an argument. Then I finally asked, "Do you even want to be in this relationship anymore?" She looked at me like I'd completely lost my mind. "What kind of question is that?" she asked. "Of course I do. Why wouldn't I?" What I wanted to say was, "Because you treat me like I'm disposable." But instead, I just nodded slowly and said, "I don't know. It just feels like we're not really on the same page anymore." She sighed dramatically and rolled her eyes again. "You're overthinking everything," she muttered. "Can we not do this tonight? I'm tired." And that was the end of the conversation. She didn't even care enough to talk things through. I watched her walk into the bedroom and shut the door behind her. And in that moment, I realized I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change soon because pretending everything was okay was getting harder and harder every day. But before I even figured out what to do about Vanessa, life basically forced my hand. A couple days after that half-dead conversation, I got a phone call from one of Vanessa's friends. We'll call her Nicole. Now, Nicole and Vanessa were pretty close. Not inseparable or anything, but definitely good enough friends that her randomly calling me caught me off guard. Honestly, I almost ignored the call because I couldn't imagine why Nicole would suddenly want to talk to me. But I answered anyway. "Hey, what's up?" I asked, trying to sound normal, even though I already had a bad feeling in my stomach. Nicole got straight to the point. "Look, I honestly don't even know if I should be telling you this," she said. "But I feel like you deserve to know." The second she said that, I knew the conversation was about to go somewhere bad. Then she dropped it on me. "Vanessa's been seeing other guys," Nicole said quietly. "And not just one guy, multiple." She told me it had apparently been happening for a while. For probably 10 full seconds, I couldn't even speak. I just sat there gripping my phone in complete shock. Finally, I managed to ask, "Are you serious?" Nicole sighed. "Yeah, I am." She explained that she and Vanessa had gotten into an argument recently, and during the fight, a bunch of things came out. According to Nicole, Vanessa had actually been bragging about seeing other men like it was no big deal. Then she said the part that honestly hurt worse than anything else. She called you her backup plan. Backup plan. That phrase hit me like a truck. I'd been working myself to death trying to support our relationship, paying bills, building a future, giving her stability. And meanwhile, she apparently saw me as nothing more than a safety net she could fall back on whenever she wanted. I asked Nicole why she was telling me all of this now. Not angrily. I genuinely wanted to understand. She hesitated before answering. "Because it's messed up," she finally said. "You're actually a good guy, and you don't deserve this. If I was in your position, I'd want somebody to tell me." Now, I'm not naive. I know how people can act after fights, especially when it comes to friend groups. Nicole and Vanessa always had this weird competitive energy between them, even when they pretended everything was fine. And Nicole definitely had a habit of criticizing Vanessa behind her back. So part of me wondered if she was exaggerating, or maybe even lying completely, just to stir up drama and watch Vanessa's life fall apart. But at the same time, the timing felt way too suspicious. Vanessa had been acting differently for months, and suddenly this information felt like the missing piece that explained everything. I couldn't just ignore it. So instead of confronting Vanessa immediately, I decided I needed to figure out the truth myself first. Over the next several days, I quietly started paying closer attention to things without making it obvious. Because I already knew if I confronted Vanessa without proof, she'd either deny everything or somehow twist the situation around until I ended up looking like the bad guy instead. So instead of confronting Vanessa right away, I decided to pay attention to her routines and use them to figure out what was really going on. One thing about Vanessa was that she had patterns, especially when it came to her nights out. She always claimed she was hanging out with friends, but she'd stay weirdly vague about the details. No names half the time, no locations, nothing specific. So the next time she got dressed to go out, I casually asked, "Who are you meeting tonight?" Without even really looking at me, she grabbed her keys and said, "Oh, just Samantha." Simple, quick, almost too quick. I waited about an hour after she left before making my move. I called Samantha, but I made sure not to sound suspicious. I didn't accuse anybody or hint that something was wrong. "Hey Samantha," I said casually when she answered. "Vanessa said she was with you tonight, but I can't get a hold of her. I think her phone died. Do you know when she's planning on coming home?" There was this awkward pause on the line. Then Samantha said, She's not with me tonight. Honestly, I haven't seen her in a while." She sounded genuinely confused. That was the first real confirmation I got that Vanessa had been lying to me. I kept my voice calm and acted like nothing was wrong. "Oh, okay," I replied casually. "Maybe I misunderstood her. Thanks anyway." Then I hung up. The second the call ended, my mind started racing. If she wasn't with Samantha, then who exactly was she with? And where was she? That's when I remembered this little cafe bar Vanessa used to love back when we first started dating. It wasn't some loud nightclub or party spot. It was more low-key, the kind of place people went for drinks and quiet conversations. She hadn't mentioned it in months, but something in my gut told me to check there. So I drove over. I parked a few blocks away because the last thing I wanted was for her to recognize my car. My heart was pounding the whole time, but I kept trying to talk myself down. Maybe Nicole exaggerated everything. Maybe I was about to embarrass myself over nothing. Part of me still desperately wanted to believe Vanessa wasn't capable of betraying me like that. But the second I got close enough to look through the window, my stomach dropped. There she was. And she definitely wasn't alone. Vanessa was sitting across from some guy I'd never seen before, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. She kept leaning toward him while they talked, touching his arm casually, smiling in that same way she used to smile at me. And the way he looked at her made it obvious this wasn't innocent. They weren't just friends. Not even close. In that moment, it felt like something heavy settled right into my chest. Every excuse I'd made for her, every red flag I ignored, every uncomfortable feeling I tried to explain away, it all suddenly became real. I wanted to walk inside and confront both of them right there. God, I wanted to. But somehow I kept myself under control. Even though my hands were shaking, I pulled out my phone and quietly took a picture from outside the cafe window. Just enough proof so she couldn't lie her way out of it later. As soon as I snapped the photo, all I felt was anger, humiliation, and honestly, validation. Because deep down, I'd known something was wrong for a long time. All those instincts I kept suppressing were standing right there in front of me through that glass window. She had played me. And even worse, she clearly thought I was too blind or too loyal to ever figure it out. But now I knew the truth. And I wasn't about to let her keep using me. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm. Not even furious, honestly. Just finished. That was the moment I realized there was nothing left to save. Whatever we had was already broken beyond repair. Vanessa had made her choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. And I fully intended to show her exactly which one of us was actually replaceable. I didn't waste any time. The very first thing I did was cancel the auto pay for her car insurance. I'd been paying it for months without complaint, but that was over now. If she wanted to drive around town acting single, she could start handling her own bills too. After that, I opened the fridge. It was packed with all the expensive stuff she liked. Those specialty yogurts, overpriced drinks, fancy cheeses she begged me to buy and barely even touched afterward. I got rid of all of it. I wasn't about to keep spoiling someone who had been disrespecting me behind my back while enjoying the comfortable life I provided for her. Then I sat her down and told her she needed to start paying her share of the household bills. Utilities, internet, water, electricity, everything. I told her straight up that the free ride was officially over. The look on her face was almost unbelievable. She looked genuinely confused that I'd even suggest it. But I stayed calm. "You're an adult, Vanessa," I told her evenly. "It's time you start acting like one." And honestly, this wasn't even about revenge. It was about finally setting boundaries. I was done being her safety net. Done being the dependable backup option she could lean on while doing whatever she wanted behind my back. And I wanted her to feel the consequences of that. Naturally, Vanessa noticed the changes pretty fast. A couple nights later, she stormed into the living room holding a letter from her insurance company. "Why didn't my insurance payment go through?" she snapped, waving the paper around like she was ready for a fight. I barely looked up. "Because I'm not paying it anymore," I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed immediately. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're an adult. I replied coldly. You can handle your own bills. I wanted her to finally understand that her actions had consequences without me having to spell everything out for her. Of course, she wasn't about to let it go. What's your problem lately? She shot back angrily. You've been acting weird for weeks, and now this? Are you seriously trying to punish me or something? I actually laughed a little at that. A short, bitter laugh. The irony was unbelievable. Punish you, I repeated, staring directly at her. Vanessa, you've been sneaking around behind my back while I've been supporting your entire life. Did you seriously think I'd never find out? The second I said that, all the color drained from her face. For a split second, she looked like she was preparing to deny everything. But instead, she crossed her arms defensively and asked, "Who told you?" Her voice sounded sharp, but underneath it I could hear panic creeping in. I leaned back in my chair and kept my tone completely even. No one had to tell me. I said, "I saw you." Then I pulled out my phone and opened the picture I took outside the cafe. There she was, sitting across from that guy, smiling and laughing like they were some happy couple on a date. I held the screen up toward her. "Recognize this?" I asked quietly. The silence between us instantly became heavy. Before she even had a chance to make up an excuse, I kept going. "So tell me something, Vanessa," I said, my voice calm but sharp. "How many of those guys who hit on you all the time are you seeing now? Because it looks like you already moved on while still living in my house." Her expression changed immediately. The guilt disappeared, and suddenly all that was left was anger. "You don't understand. I needed attention." Vanessa snapped back immediately. "You're always at work. Half the time, I didn't even feel like I had a boyfriend anymore." I slowly stood up and looked directly at her. "No, Vanessa," I said calmly but firmly. "You made a choice. You got comfortable disrespecting me because you assumed I'd always stay no matter what you did." I shook my head. "But let me make something very clear to you right now. I'm not your backup plan. The second you decided I was replaceable, you lost me." Her expression hardened instantly. "You're being ridiculous," she yelled. "Girls get attention all the time. That doesn't automatically mean anything happened. Maybe if you actually paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have wanted to go out all the time." That excuse lit a fire inside me. "Don't try to blame me for your decisions," I shot back coldly. "You had every opportunity to talk to me like an adult. Instead, you lied to me and cheated on me. That's your fault, not mine." Her face started falling apart emotionally, but honestly, by that point, I was done softening things for her. "You want to know what my problem is?" I continued. "It's you. It's the way you treated me like I was disposable while I was out here building a life for us." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off before she could start twisting the situation around. "No, we're done here," I said firmly. "Pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. This isn't your home anymore." The room went dead silent after that. I could practically see her brain scrambling to figure out how to manipulate the situation or talk her way out of it. But for once, I wasn't giving her that opportunity. "You can't seriously kick me out," she cried suddenly, tears pouring down her face. "I don't have anywhere else to go. Please don't do this. I swear I'll fix everything." I looked straight at her while she stood there shaking. "Vanessa," I said evenly, "I worked my ass off trying to build stability for us. Turns out you never deserved it." Then I reminded her of her own words. "You said there were tons of guys out there who'd love to be with you, remember? Well, maybe now's the time to go find one of them. Because I'm done." That completely broke her. She dropped to her knees sobbing, grabbing at her chest dramatically. "I didn't mean it," she cried. "I wasn't thinking. I was joking. Please don't throw me out. I'll change. I'll do whatever you want." But hearing her beg didn't move me the way it probably would have a few months earlier. I just shook my head slowly. "You already made your choices, Vanessa," I told her. "You lied to me. You disrespected me. You treated me like I was just an option you could fall back on whenever things didn't work out elsewhere." I paused for a second before finishing. "And now you're facing the consequences of that. It's not my responsibility to rescue you anymore." For a brief moment, I watched the desperation leave her face and turn into pure anger. "You're going to regret this," she spat while pushing herself back to her feet. "You'll regret losing someone like me. You're never going to find anyone better." That actually made me laugh. Not a happy laugh. More like one of those short, sharp laughs that comes out when something is so ridiculous you can't even take it seriously. "Better than you?" I said, shaking my head. "Vanessa, you already proved you're replaceable." Then I looked her dead in the eyes. "Goodbye." She just stood there frozen for a second, opening and closing her mouth like she wanted to argue more, but couldn't think of anything else to say. Eventually, she grabbed her stuff and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. And honestly, the second the silence settled over the house, all I felt was relief. No guilt, no second guessing, no sadness, just relief. For the first time in months, I felt free from all the stress, manipulation, and constant emotional exhaustion she brought into my life. Over the next several days, though, I kept thinking back on everything. Part of me couldn't stop asking myself how I let things get so bad. Why I ignored so many warning signs. Why I kept making excuses for someone who clearly stopped respecting me a long time ago. But Vanessa wasn't about to let the breakup end peacefully. Within a few days, mutual friends started reaching out to me. Apparently, she'd been going around telling people I was controlling and emotionally abusive. According to her version of the story, I randomly threw her out for no reason and never allowed her to have any freedom. I honestly couldn't believe it. She completely rewrote the relationship in her favor, turning herself into the victim while trying to paint me as some horrible, controlling boyfriend. At first, it really pissed me off. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted everybody to know the truth. But after thinking about it for a while, I realized something important. The people who genuinely knew me weren't going to believe her lies anyway. They saw how much I did for Vanessa. They saw how uneven the relationship had become. And honestly, anyone willing to blindly believe her without hearing my side probably wasn't someone I needed around me in the first place. A few weeks later, I bumped into one of our mutual friends at a coffee shop, and they ended up giving me an update about Vanessa. Apparently, she had already moved on and started dating some wealthy guy. At first, I honestly didn't care. It wasn't my problem anymore. But then the friend smirked and said, "Yeah, that didn't last long. He dumped her after less than 2 weeks." Naturally, I asked why. Turns out the guy found out Vanessa had been living with me rent-free while I paid most of her bills and helped cover her tuition. According to my friend, the guy realized pretty quickly he was about to become her next personal ATM machine. I couldn't help laughing a little. That was classic Vanessa, always chasing the next, better option because she genuinely believed she was too special to ever lose. Honestly, though, I didn't feel sorry for her. She made her decisions, and now she had to live with the consequences of them. At that point, the only thing I really cared about was hoping she stayed out of my life for good instead of trying to crawl back once things stopped going her way. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. If anything else happens, maybe I'll update you again someday. But for now, I'm honestly just happy to close this chapter of my life and move forward. Final update. Alright, guys, I figured I'd give one last update on everything that happened after Vanessa left. And here's the funny thing Vanessa never understood. She thought she was the prize in the relationship. She wasn't. About a month after the breakup, I started seeing somebody new. Let's call her Claire. And honestly, Claire was everything Vanessa wasn't. She was kind, supportive, genuine. She actually appreciated me instead of constantly taking from me. For the first time in forever, I felt respected and valued in a relationship again. Claire didn't just expect things from me all the time. She actually contributed emotionally and cared about making the relationship feel balanced. And apparently, word spread pretty quickly. It didn't take long before Vanessa found out I had moved on. I'm not exactly sure how she heard about Claire. Could have been mutual friends, social media, or just gossip spreading around. But once Vanessa found out, people said she completely lost it. A couple mutual friends told me she was devastated. And honestly, I think reality finally hit her. She expected me to sit around miserable while she moved on to bigger and better things. Instead, I found someone better for me while the guy she chased after didn't even want to stick around. She wasn't handling that very well. At first, after that rich guy dumped her, Vanessa started trying little subtle things to get my attention again. At first, Vanessa started trying little things to force her way back into my life. Random texts out of nowhere. Messages asking if we could just talk. She even started showing up at places she knew I usually went to, almost like she hoped we'd accidentally run into each other. I ignored every bit of it. Honestly, I was done with her by that point. And more importantly, Claire deserved my full attention instead of me getting dragged back into old drama. But Vanessa clearly wasn't ready to let go. And eventually, she decided to turn things up to a whole new level. One evening, I heard loud yelling coming from outside my house. At first, I figured it was just people arguing somewhere down the street. But then I recognized Vanessa's voice immediately. I walked over to the front door and opened it. And there she was, standing on my porch with 4 of her friends behind her like some kind of support squad. The second I stepped outside, they all started coming at me at once. "You're unbelievable," one of her friends shouted while pointing at me like I was some criminal on trial. "How could you just throw her away like she means nothing?" Another one chimed in immediately after. "You're seriously heartless." Meanwhile, Vanessa stood there crying dramatically with tears running down her face like she was starring in some emotional movie scene. Honestly, if I didn't know her better, I probably would have felt bad. But after everything she'd already done, I wasn't buying the act anymore. "After everything we've been through, you're really just done with me?" Vanessa cried. "Just like that?" I leaned against the doorway with my arms crossed, completely calm while all her friends kept yelling in the background. What exactly do you want, Vanessa? I asked evenly, ignoring the chaos around her. Her voice cracked while she answered. I came here because I needed to tell you something important, but you refused to even talk to me, she said. You completely shut me out. You just gave up on us. Her friends nodded along dramatically like backup dancers in a music video. One of them stepped forward and said, "You don't even understand what she's been going through. She deserves way better than this." I sighed and looked directly at Vanessa. Are you guys finished? I asked calmly, because I'm not interested in all the theatrics. If you came here to say something, then just say it. Vanessa looked at her friends for encouragement before finally blurting it out. I'm pregnant, she said shakily. And it's yours. The entire porch suddenly went quiet. All her friends immediately looked at me, clearly expecting some huge emotional reaction. But honestly, I didn't even flinch. I just stared at her calmly for a second. Really? I said finally, raising an eyebrow. And you brought your whole cheerleading team here to announce it? She sniffled dramatically before speaking again. I didn't know how to tell you, she said. I've been scared and stressed, and I don't know what to do. I nodded slowly. All right, I replied. Then let's skip the drama and handle this like adults. If you're pregnant, proving it shouldn't be a problem. Show me a test, a doctor's note, literally anything. The second I said that, her friends all exchanged nervous looks. Then one of them jumped in quickly. She literally just found out, her friend snapped. She hasn't even had time to go to the doctor yet. I looked back at Vanessa. Is that true? I asked calmly. Because if you really are pregnant, then we'll deal with it responsibly. But if you're lying to manipulate me, this conversation ends right now. For just a split second, I saw panic flash across her face before she tried covering it up. Why can't you just trust me? She shouted suddenly. After everything we've been through, why would I lie about something like this? I looked her dead in the eyes. Because you've already lied to me about everything else, I answered coldly. So no, I don't trust you anymore. Then I repeated myself. If you're telling the truth, prove it. Her friends instantly started yelling at me again, calling me names and acting offended, but honestly, I tuned all of them out. I kept my attention completely on Vanessa, and after a few seconds, she looked away first. That tiny moment of hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Eventually, the entire group stormed off my property while muttering insults under their breath and calling me every name imaginable. And honestly, even though Vanessa's performance looked convincing at first, it completely fell apart once I started asking for proof. Still, I'd be lying if I said the situation didn't leave me unsettled afterward. Because even though my gut told me she was lying, part of me still wondered, what if there was some truth to it? A few days later, though, I got my answer. Nicole reached out to me again, the same friend who originally warned me Vanessa had been cheating. At this point, it honestly felt like Nicole had a front row seat to the entire disaster. She told me Vanessa wasn't pregnant at all. The whole thing had been fake. Apparently, Vanessa completely spiraled after realizing I had moved on with Claire, and the fake pregnancy story was basically her desperate last attempt to force me back into her life. Honestly, hearing that didn't even shock me anymore. It just disgusted me. That was the moment I officially cut every remaining tie with her. I blocked Vanessa on absolutely everything. Her number, her social media, all of it. Whatever lies she wanted to tell after that, or whatever chaos she created next wasn't my responsibility anymore. Meanwhile, things with Claire kept getting better and better. Being with somebody who actually respected me made me realize how toxic my relationship with Vanessa had really been. Vanessa spent so much time acting like she was impossible to replace. But in reality, she was the one who got replaced easily the second I found someone healthier and more genuine. As for Vanessa, from what I heard, things didn't exactly work out great for her afterward. Apparently, she'd been bouncing from couch to couch staying with different people, and eventually she dropped out of school after her parents stopped financially supporting her. Honestly, by then, I didn't really care anymore. She took everything she had for granted until it was gone. And that's pretty much where the story ends. Thanks again for all the support and comments, everybody. Seriously, it meant a lot getting through all this. Take care of yourselves.